folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and I appreciate you, everybody, tuning in today. Got on the line Mr. Tim Brown, who is the managing editor of Freedom Outpost, and he is a wonderful human being who has the task of raising 10 children and a website that is growing in popularity every day. Tim, how you doing today?
I'm good, Roy. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Like I was telling you before the call, Tim, that I really don't have an agenda, but I just wanted to talk to you about. I want to start out with Lindsey Graham, and I know that there's a few counties in South Carolina that are trying to keep him from running. Is that right? Am I misinterpreting that, or what's going on with him?
Well, there have been 9 counties so far. The latest is Charleston, South Carolina. The Charleston County Party, GOP party, censured him just this past week. It was a very close vote, one of the closest in the censures, adopting the censure resolutions that there's been. The vote was 39 to 32. And there have been others within South Carolina who've censured him over the past year because of his voting record, because of the things where he's wanting to aid our enemies, and some of the stands that he's taken in the Senate. And I got word last night from a friend of mine. He's also a reporter, writer at benswan.com, and he contributes to us, Joshua Cook, who said that there looks like there might be a 10th county to censure him right on the horizon.
That's awesome.
I think so too.
The man needs to go, in my opinion. He needs to be investigated. He needs to be investigated from a civil standpoint and not from a political standpoint, because some of the things that he's done, some of the words that he's used, and some of the acts that he is, or the bills that he's been on, and it's terrifying.
Well, he's not the only one.
He's not the only one.
Let's beat out an article for Barack Obama just on the Muslim Brotherhood issue alone, nothing else. And I pulled the definition from the Constitution for treason of what he is engaged in simply with the Muslim Brotherhood alone. The aid of our enemies abroad, Al Qaeda in specifics. They can call them Syrian jihadists all they want to, but that kind of aid, the things that we're learning about in Benghazi and the weapons trafficking there, all of those things are treasonous. They are, and John McCain is right in there with them.
Yes,
and there are a number of people who support these people. Hillary Clinton, yes. Recently the Boko Haram thing, so these guys, whether they are purposefully and know what these people are and they're just corrupt in that sense, or they're willfully ignorant, and that's the only way I can put it, because they should know. They're people in higher positions than I am. They have access to information that I don't, and yet they continue to support them, which means they're just going to turn a blind eye to it, which means they're even more corrupt. These people need to be held accountable, and the only way I see that happening is from the people in the states. It's not going to come from Washington, that's for sure.
Oh no, it does have to come from the state, and it has to come from the people within South Carolina or within it's New Mexico where McCain is.
Arizona.
Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona. Uh-huh.
The people have to take charge and demand an investigation.
Sure.
And until that happens, it's just going to continue to not pay any attention to the people and just go on about their business and do whatever they want to, really. And have no regard for the law, for the Constitution, for anything. And it just...
You're right. You're exactly right.
And is the gentleman's name Trey Gowdy? Is that?
Yeah, Trey is he is a congressman from the district right below me.
Okay. And he is heading up an investigation into Hillary Clinton and the Benghazi situation. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
I know that he was appointed, and I know that there were some things that he said recently, but I haven't had an opportunity to read those. Have you been keeping up with that, with what's going on?
Yeah, there's not been a lot. There was one specific thing, where he said that he was going to be demanding, every piece of relevant evidence, whether there's documents or whatever, on Benghazi in his investigation. And Gowdy, I mean, people need to understand Trey Gowdy is he's a different animal for Washington. He was a prosecutor in South Carolina. From what I understand, he never lost a case. And he is one who doesn't ask frivolent questions. He is one who's very pointed. We've seen that in the IRS hearings and some other hearings. And it's kind of funny. He's somewhat like me. Every time you see this guy, his hair looks different. He just, some days he looks up like I didn't even brush it. Other times it's slicked back. Other times it's just all over. But I think it's because he's not worried so much about his personal appearance as he is about getting his job done that he's been sent there to do. And so far, he's had 2 terms in Congress. He's running again. There's an organization in Texas that's looking. They're really wanting him to come and be their chief counsel and start prosecuting Washington officials based upon their votes.
Wow.
But I talked with his spokesperson, and she said, he's already filed for re-election, and so he's, at least for right now, he's going to have that. Now he's been put in head of this Benghazi Select Committee, which is good night. That thing's been at least a year or more in the making. There was a resolution last January that was put forth by Virginia's Frank Wolf to actually have the House Select Committee investigate Benghazi. And John Boehner would not have it. This was when they were going through all the fiscal cliff mess, which they sold us out on, and the debt ceiling stuff, which they sold us out on, and everything else that they've sold us out on.
Yes.
And John Boehner said, we have the sequester in now. We can't, this is a waste of money. Now, all of a sudden, in an election year, he says, oh, we need to have this because of these emails, as if we didn't have that understanding before.
Right.
And many people are saying Trey Gowdy should be the Speaker of the House. I agree. He's a leader. He knows what it takes to lead. He won't be a spineless
crybaby
pansy. Yeah, he won't be a spineless pansy, feminized woman. And sorry if that offends people, but that's the way I look at it. There are women with more spine than he has.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, they really are, and and that's not. I'm not trying to offend women. I'm just telling it like it is. That's the way it is, and so I hope he does get. I hope he'll get that position. The House needs a good leader and a man of high moral character, and so far he's demonstrated that. My concern is, the longer that people stay up there, even good men, usually their corruption ends up seeping in, and I don't want to see that with him. I'd like to see him, if he wins another term, to get out after that and go pursue something else.
Yeah, that would certainly be a way of avoiding the corruption, is to do as Jesse Ventura did. Go in, do the job that you say you're going to do, and then go back to private life.
Sure. Sure, because it's public service. It's not supposed to be a career.
Correct. It's not supposed to be an Al Gore. Never worked a day in his life.
Sure.
But I really hope that he does get into a higher position within the Congress and is able to do something, because we need some leaders. That's the one thing that we are lacking in Washington, D.C. is leaders. I mean, there aren't any. They're so few that they're drowned out. I mean.
Yeah. Well, you've got a few, of course, Gowdy in the House, and then you've got, people like Justin Amash, who I respect immensely. Every time the guy goes and votes, he goes and puts his vote, what he was voting on, why he voted the way he did. He puts it every time up on Facebook for his constituents to see. And that, to me, Obama said he was going to have a transparent administration, that's transparency.
Yes.
It's saying, here, you elected me not to do whatever you want done, but you elected me to be your representative, which means you trust my character to be somewhat close to yours. You trust my thoughts and ideas to be somewhat close to yours. And we all want to obey the law. And so I can't vote for things that are against the law. I can't vote for things that are against conscience. And I'm not going to vote for things that are detrimental to either the confederacy of our states or of my own state. I represent, in Amash's case, he represents Michigan. So you have to have that kind of parallel. And people think, well, we got a representative; they ought to be doing what we want them to do. Well, what do we send them up there to do? We send them up there to uphold the law. That's what we send them to do. So if you want them to start taxing people more so that they can provide you more goodies, that's not lawful. That's unlawful.
Right.
And I appreciate when guys will continually stand, against things like that. That's one of the things I admired so much about Ron Paul.
Yes.
Was he was consistent in that. And apparently the corruption didn't take hold in his life like it did with others. So
yeah. Well, which is a rarity, and I think that Bernie Sanders would fall into that same category. I mean, you may take exception to that. I know a lot of people don't necessarily think that he's fighting the good fight for the right reasons, but I personally think that he is. I mean,
right.
I think that he's been a person of integrity for a number of years, and I think that he will continue to be. I think he like Ron Paul has that shield that that the corruption just can't penetrate. So
right. Well, I mean, I say that to give people hope. There are good men that represent, and I think probably most of those good men, you'll never really hear them in front of a camera or see them on television or any of that other kind of stuff because they're not necessarily out there to make a show. They're out there to represent their people, and that's what they do.
That they're there to do a job.
Yeah,
and that's to represent the law and uphold the law.
That's correct.
And not be above it. What are your thoughts, Tim, as far as what's going on in Ukraine and with Russia and China seemingly teaming up to put an end to the petrodollar?
Yeah, there's that's been a long time coming.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it we have ourselves to blame as far as foreign policies that we've had. I think we've had some problems in how we've treated other countries, and we've had problems in how obviously we're handling our money, and like you said, the petrodollar, how it's tied in with oil, and the kind of currency it is, where other nations are having to basically buy dollars in order to buy oil. Eventually, yeah, that's going to come to an end. People might as well face that. That's what's going to happen. And then from there on, I don't know what's going to happen. But I can tell you with the policies that we're seeing out of the current administration, we're probably looking at gas prices to go up.
I would say significantly.
Yes, significantly. I mean, and then that's going to, a lot of things are triggering there is EPA policies for the coal mines, which affect your electricity prices. And I just came back, me and my kids, we go to an annual electric co-op every year. And we were hearing from them, we've got in our state, we've got the lowest prices of any electrical co-op in our state. And so, and yet, they're still much higher than they were just a couple of years ago. So, I'm happy that they're lower than anybody else's, but still, at the same time, it's still eating my pocketbook. So,
well, it should have only gone up by about 2%, according to the Federal Reserve.
Well, yeah, that's what they say. But they ain't looking at my bills, apparently.
Oh, that's right. They don't count energy as far as the inflation goes. That I forgot. Yeah.
But
because we
yeah, I mean,
use that.
yeah, I mean, you know what? My thought is, and I may be ignorant on this or whatever, but my thought is, look, at least the in the Ukraine you have that section of Ukraine that is they're basically Russian people. They voted. We talk about democracy and stuff, and the United States is not a democracy. We use democratic processes, but we're a constitutional republic. We don't have mob rule. We don't even vote every time there's something up to vote. So we're not a democracy, but we talk about pushing out with Russia. These are our brothers. Okay, let them go. Don't those people have a right to determine whether or not they want to go to bed with the European Union, which is what the Obama administration was forcing them into? I mean, the reason all that stuff's flared up anyway is because we were pumping money into it for the rebellion.
Yes.
So it's out. People can say what they want to. I love the United States, but our leadership is so corrupt. This is what they're doing,
Yep.
and
It's unfortunate.
and we're sticking our nose in places it doesn't need to be. Let the Ukrainian people do what they want to do.
Yeah, it's none of our
If
business.
if they want to go, instead of being slaves in the EU, they want to be slaves to the Russians. Hey, let them go.
Yeah.
Let them be that.
Well, and I personally think that it still comes down to the gas lines that are the pipelines that are coming out of Russia and through Ukraine and into Europe. And I think that's a key element to the whole situation, as far as the reason that the United States has picked Ukraine, and it's one of the few countries that doesn't have missile bases in it. Also,
Right.
I think that between those two, I mean, and when the protests and the riots and all that were flaring up back last summer, spring, fall, that that's when Russia stepped up and said, "Well, wait a minute, that's our backyard, and actually those are our people."
Sure.
And can't say that I blame them. I mean, can you imagine if Russia were over in either Canada or Mexico and saying, "Well, you know, all of
Well,
these
no,
folks they're gonna come over and be Russian."
we've seen that. We saw that in the Cuban Missiles Crisis. Where here you have Russia bringing missiles into Cuba that can reach us in a very short period of time, and we were, the whole world was on pins and needles at the time. So I get that. I see that too. And
Well, unfortunately, the recording stopped, and I didn't even realize it. I can assure you that I will get Tim Brown back on just as quick as possible, pick up the conversation exactly where we left off with the crisis in Ukraine, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the other subjects that we had discussed beyond this point. I appreciate everybody listening, and once again, I apologize for the disruption, but just keep watching and listening, and we'll be back with you just as quick as possible. Thank you so much.